Je t'aime. Je t'aime. Oh oui, je t'aime.
Moi non plus.
You're in the gray zone. I'm Mark Ebner, award-winning journalist, New York Times best-selling author, and private investigator. And I'm yakking at you here from the Carl Kozlowski Crow's Nest high atop the HMS Bounty in the Gaylord Hotel. Now, I found out something very interesting before I came up here today, that Gaylord Hotel has an interesting history. The boulevard that we are on, Wilshire Boulevard, is named for Gaylord, Mr. Gaylord Wilshire. Dr. David Robinson.
Yes, sir.
Yes. He's here with me. He's on the dials. You doing all right, Doctor?
Doing all right. Thank you very much.
Okay, real quick. Listen up. This is listener-supported podcasting, so if you like what you hear, ship me some shekels. PayPal, markebner59@gmail.com. Venmo the same, or you can subscribe to the show on Patreon, www.patreon.com/Mark Ebner. Tip the monkey on the way out. And if you like what you hear, tell a friend. So, boom. As recommended to me by my sister in ink, sex columnist Susanna Breslin, in no particular order. Sovereign Syre, did I pronounce that right?
You did.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Sovereign Syre is a scholar, a model, a stand-up comic, a poet, a pundit, and a porn star.
That's a lot. I've never really thought about it in the collective. That's I wear quite a few hats.
Sometimes no hat at all.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Welcome to the Gray Zone.
Thank you.
Sovereign.
What is the Gray Zone? What's the title about? Gray Zone.
Well, it's kind of that. Well, like when I introduce myself. Oh, I'm a journalist, New York Times bestseller. I'm a PI. I'm just somewhere in between. And it sounds a lot like you too when you think about it through all that alliteration: a poet, a pundit, a porn star. Anyway, it's good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Well, we've both written for XOJane.com.
Oh yeah, that was interesting.
And we are both into pit bull rescue. Bless your heart.
Yes.
So you have a friend in life from me. So Sovereign Syre, by the way, is one of the greatest monikers ever.
I first took on that name. I was shooting for a site called God's Girls, and they said if you're going to be shooting naked, it's probably better not to use your legal name. And I thought there was some wisdom in that. And it was an alt modeling. It was an alt modeling site, so all the girls had names like Malice or Skin, and so I wanted to pick something that was like feminine but still sounded alternative.
And
so
it's
I went with
poetic.
Sovereign.
It's poetic.
Yeah.
And it also it really gives me sort of a sovereign, independent sire, Sovereign Syre. It's strong. It's really strong.
Well, and I think when I started doing, when I decided to be naked on the internet, at that time I never thought I was going to be doing porn. I thought I was going to do some naked modeling for a little while, make some money, and go backpack around Europe to finish. I was working on a historical novel about the French Revolution. I thought I'd go see it. And then, it's like 7 years later. I've been in over 200 films and won awards and all kinds of stuff, and I've been in Vogue and Hustler and Playboy and GQ and all this stuff. It's kind of very interesting trajectory because I was a very sort of nerdy.
Did you ever do Maxim magazine by any chance?
No, I didn't.
The reason why I asked was because I in the 90s to the mid 2000s I did a lot of writing for them. I was kind of like their crime guy, and my audience was in prison. A large part these guys, because Maxim magazine, it had the TNA, but not quite all of it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Just enough for the prison guidelines, so they could get that literature of mine into the prisons. And sooner or later, when they're done looking at the pictures, they're actually reading the words. So I have a little.
What kind of crime did you like to write about?
I like to expose cults. Scientology would be one. I like to expose rapists. Bill Cosby would be another.
Oh, you wrote about him?
Yes, I did. In 2004, I was trying to tell you. In fact, if You go to dailybeast.com, you can see I warned you about Bill Cosby in 2004. Is my story. Nobody listened.
Yeah.
I was thinking about porn star names. Marilyn Chambers comes to mind. Tracy Lord, Sasha Grey. But you really went deep with yours, and I love it, and I'm glad you're here. I left the gray zone last week, siding with the sex workers in response to on allegations of child sex crimes and human trafficking. The feds have abruptly seized and shut down the commerce platform Backpage.com. Are you aware of that?
Oh, yeah. Very aware. Yeah. So basically what's happened is, sex work has always been illegal. Well, not always, and it's still not illegal in certain states. But prostitution, because I have to be clear, like, not all forms of sex work are illegal. Camming is legal. The kind of sex work that I've always engaged in, legal sex work, which is in my adult films, people would consider that sex work. Sort of prostitution, the prostitution form of sex work is illegal, at least in California. Mm-hmm. And so, there are certain sites that have come up, like Backpage, myredbook.com, eros.com, the Erotic Review, places like this, where they kind of towed the line between not explicitly selling sexual services, but there was a place where sex workers could advertise their trade. And the most vital thing that these things do is they put time and distance and scrutiny between an escort and a potential client, which are sort of a vital life-saving thing, like time to check with other girls that a client has seen, make sure that they're safe, ways to verify their identity, things like this, like these like time and scrutiny, things that you can't get on the street, like when you go to the street to do sex work. And Backpage, apparently someone was prostituting underage girls and advertising them on Backpage, and Kamala Harris decided that the people that ran Backpage knew this and were willfully engaging in, are complicit in child sex trafficking in order to make money, which is not. And here's the thing: is all the people that have been brought up on charges at Backpage, none of them ended up being charged with trafficking because there's no proof that they had any knowledge this was going on. Now, SESTA and FOSTA, the way they're changing the law is they're making it so anyone that runs a peer-to-peer platform like this, now can be held accountable for the actions of the people that use the service. So that's going to affect Twitter. That will affect OnlyFans. That will affect almost any porn site. That will affect Pornhub, PornTube, RedTube, YouTube. Because now you're saying that the people that run these platforms that allow people to post user content are now liable for what the users post.
Right, and but so why not? Why not? Like I've been saying, why not just lop off the head of the snake and hold Google accountable? I mean, because let's face it, if you really want to find something, in that sex for pay arena, you're going to be able to do it on Google no matter what.
Yeah, well, and it's also this thing about decriminalizing. It's like if you decriminalized sex work, it would eliminate a lot of these problems. Just like if you decriminalized drugs, it's not like smugglers would suddenly be making a bunch of money. They would be making no money. And so if you decriminalize sex work, it's not like traffickers would suddenly be taking advantage of the legal sex work. They would be out of a job, because the reason that sex traffickers have the work in the first place is supply and demand. Mm-hmm. And so it's like if you decriminalize sex work, and because here's the other thing about these sites like Backpage and stuff like that, is that people that choose to engage in sex work, it's that it allows them to not have pimps, because they can screen clients by themselves. They can find clients by themselves. They can advertise online. Then potential clients can contact them. They can screen those clients. They can engage. Like it empowers the sex worker. It doesn't require them to have a middleman anymore. So if anything, these sites like Backpage or whatever are actually helping to make sex work safer, and they're actually helping to people that choose to engage in the sex trade or to trade in sex. It allows them to be in control. A girl just tweeted the other day, like, I'll quit hoeing when you provide me like a livable wage, control over the means of production, like all these things. Like there's people talk about sex work, and they always want to talk about people's relationship to sex, but never about their relationship to work. And there's a lot of reasons why people would choose to engage in sex work. A lot of sex workers are single mothers. It allows them to stay at home and take care of their kids and only have to work a few days a week or a few days a month to make the required income to provide for their families in a way that other kinds of work won't. But no one ever really talks about like why people would. Everyone's like, no one would choose to engage in sex work, and it's no, a lot of people do, and they do so for reasons because unless you're going to fix capitalism, unless you're going to fix the fact that minimum wage is not a livable wage at this point, until you're going to fix the fact that it's society pretty much lets men off the hook for like not supporting their children and this kind of stuff. As long as you're creating this environment in which this line of work is attractive, it's never going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
That's your argument is great. I mean, I say legalize it. If I go back when, like you said about sex work as work, when you think about it, well, I can go all the way back to the 70s. I'm a generation ahead of you, and I was working as a barback at a place called the Naked Eye Cabaret and Pussy Galore Stag Bar in the Combat Zone in Boston, Massachusetts. And I became fast friends with Princess Cheyenne. Her name, she did her whole act, total live nude girl review, but it was billed as a college review, where the college girls, from the surrounding Massachusetts institutions of higher learning were, and she actually was putting herself through college dancing at night. Yeah. And she was pulling down about $1,000 a night. And that kind of money is just, Well,
I mean, like Stormy Daniels got into porn to pay off her art school debt, and I know a lot of performers that aren't necessarily putting themselves through college with sex work, but that's how they're paying off their student loans because they're in debt bondage. Like, there's so many other things wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like most of the girls that I know that are an adult are either single moms that are doing this because it's cheaper than childcare. It's like it's more cost effective and time effective, and then the other half are paying off incredible, crushing amounts of student debt. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then of course, like any other field, and then of course you do have the people that are like sustaining drug habits and stuff like that. But I mean that's in any field where you have a lot of money coming quickly, right?
And going back to some of the for our listeners, a little history of Backpage.com. I used to work for the owners of Backpage, Michael Lacey and James Larkin, who have now been busted by the feds. And I worked for them in the 90s. In fact, I boasted about a couple of awards I'd won. Two of them I won for their their paper, New Times Los Angeles. One was called Pit Bullies, which was about dogfighting in Los Angeles, an expose on that. And the other was for The Bagman. It was that Eddie Murphy story I did talked about several episodes back. And that was a Los Angeles Press Club Award, runner-up, American Society of Journalists or whatever. So I did some good work for them. Mm-hmm. Now, when they came into town from Arizona, especially Michael Lacey, he had some sort of editorial edict, and that was, okay, great, we got a staff here, no sex and no religion. I'm sick of it. I don't want it. Within 3 months, we were putting out sex and religion stories, moving a lot of papers for him.
Because it sells.
That's right. And he stepped back and he said, I want more sex. I want more religion. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And look where he wound up. He wound up all sex. All sex, Backpage.com. Well, and he was making, let's look at it. For the sex worker, she's making her wage. She's paying her bills. She's a single mom raising her kid. These guys were making hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Backpage had gone international by the time they caught up with them.
And that's the thing is that I think what all of this, this conservative Republican anti-sex work, this rhetoric, it has nothing to do with morality, because you look at all of these Republican conservative politicians that inevitably are caught having alone. So on its face, evidence, like empirical evidence tells us, like our own eyes tell us that everyone uses porn. Everyone, and that men that have money and access to variety will engage sex workers. They will have affairs. If they have access to variety of pussy and money, they will use it. And here's my thing, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're being honest with, who the fuck knows what, like, I'm sure these spouses are like, I'm sure Melania was like 9 months pregnant, didn't want to fuck him either.